Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hi, my name is Fred and I'm an alcoholic. I'm sober today by the grace of God and by the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm glad to be out here in the land of hot. Whew. God, hot today. Happy birthday, all you birthday people. That's fantastic, you know. To range from 3 to 36, huh? Outstanding. Outstanding. Well, I see a lot of my old friends here tonight, and I sent one home early. I've known Ferg for 20 years, and I sent him home at 9 o'clock. And he should be watching whatever he watches by now. And Ralph's still awake, and John's asleep out there in the back room. Ralph, are you still here? You're going home, okay? Listen, I hope I'm going to lighten up a little tonight. I've been getting so damn heavy I can't even stand it myself. I really have. So I come out here where it's nice and hot so I can loosen up and lighten up some. I got up this morning at a reasonable hour, about 6. And I got down on the side of my bed, and I do something that I do most every morning. I ask for knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry it out. 2 things. And I've been doing that since I was 7 years sober. And by the grace of this fantastic power that we have here called God, and with the hope of staying sober one day at a time between now and November the 6th, I'll have 22 years of continuous sobriety in this fellowship. And one of the things that has kept me sober, if not the only thing, is this power. So, I've told you about all I know. Now, you want to say the Lord's Prayer? Get an early out, okay? No, I'm going to tell you something else. If you won't drink between now and tomorrow when the meeting starts again, you'll stay sober another day, too. Janet, are you still here? Yeah, my friend Janet's still here, too. And Jesus, she thinks I speak every night because the last meeting she went to, I was the speaker there. Oh, man, and that's something. I get called about twice a year, and she just happened to be unlucky enough to hit them both, you know. That's okay. God, we're still sober, Janet. Oh, I never know where to start this mess. I don't want to talk about getting drunk and falling into my own puke and all that kind of stuff. But I can't hardly tell you my story unless I go into that kind of garbage, you know, so I'm going to try to hit lightly on it and skip on down the road and tell you some more. I drank for sure because I wouldn't be here tonight if I wasn't a drinker. Trust me, I'd find some other place to be on Saturday night. Not, you know, I just really would. I love you guys terrifically, but I mean, if I wasn't a drunk, I might not love you so much, you see. Yeah. I have, but man, I've been in love with AA for I'm lucky. I've been in love with NAA for 20, almost 22 years now, see. That makes it easy. If you're here fighting City Hall, man, you're in deep trouble. Really, it's so much easier when you get here if you just kind of like it, you know, and don't fight. I think there's something in the book that talks about give up the fight, you know. Let go absolutely, I believe it says. I'm trying not to quote the book because I don't like for people to do that. They're smarter than I am. And some of them are good at it, you know. I had a sponsor, God rest his soul. Some of you guys will remember him. He was about this big. His name was Joe. Joe Motes was his name. And he was a tiger, just about this big. And I swear to you, the first time I saw him, I wanted to punch him, you know. And the only reason I guess I probably didn't is because I was scared of him. But anyway, he got up on the podium that night, and he had the, I wish you could have seen it, because he had the big book. And they said, Joe M., from wherever he was from at the time, is going to read chapter 5. So he goes up. If any of you remember the old motion picture group in downtown Hollywood, he got up on the stage at the motion picture group, and he opened the book, and I swear to God he didn't open it to chapter 5. And he proceeds to read chapter 5 from memory. And he's looking at the book as if he's reading it, you know. He knew that thing by heart. That was the first time I saw him. The last time I saw him before he died was a Saturday night at the Malibu meeting. And he had 3 newcomers with him. And the man left just a fantastic impression on me because he was such a fearless AA guy and worker, you know. I learned so much from him, not by what he said so much, you know. I've got some tape. You know what he did? He left me in his will, he left me an avocado tree. It was about that big. And I went out to look at that sucker the other day, and it's really getting big. I'm going to have to do some trimming on that thing. It's out in my backyard. But Joe was a guy who left a lasting impression on me. Now, for you 14 people who got up tonight and had the courage to get up and say your name and tell us that you were an alcoholic and if you belonged here, the reason I'm telling you this is that I hope to God tonight that if you have not met someone like Joe Motes, that you will, maybe before you leave here tonight, meet him or meet her. Because that's the kind of action that will get you sober and keep you sober for a long, long time. Now, mind you, I said, by his actions, I am still impressed, not by what he said. That's why I told you about what happened to him on the Saturday night before he had his final heart attack. He had had enough heart attacks to kill most any man I know. And he just kept having them and kept going, you know, and he finally did have the one master, you know. So, but I don't tell you that, you know. I just tell you that Joe was a fantastic man, and he was a great influence on me. And one of the things that I've heard it said tonight a lot already, and that's my part of the meeting, and I just loved it. And that was that this is a gift. Ruth mentioned it 2 or 3 times, you know, and some of the other guys that took their birthday cake tonight. We're talking about this gift of sobriety. How precious it is. How much it is meaningful, you know. how fantastic sobriety is, and how fantastic the people are when you get to know them, I've just gone through some fantastic experiences in my life, and I'm going to tell them to you now for fear I'll forget some of them, because I noticed that I'm getting pretty forgetful as I get younger on this program. And I'm leaving my car keys in my car and locking the doors, and forgetting my wife's name and things like that. I'm promptly admitting it. God, I'm telling you, any guy who's married in AA should be so lucky as to have a lady like I have. She is a fantastic person. God. Well, I didn't mean to start there. I was going to tell you about what's been happening to me. Were any of you guys watching Wide World of Sports on February the 11th, 1984? Okay, Ralph, you aren't supposed to answer. Okay. I'm that old fool that was riding a bicycle against the wind in Kona, in Hawaii. And it was one of the great, God, it was a great experience. I wish every one of you could have been there with me that day, because that was the day of the Ironman. And for a wino like me, who's 20 years on this program and should know better, you should have been there, I got in the water in the morning early in the bay in Kona with 1,000 young, strong, healthy people. And we set out on a little swim that was to take us out around the boat and back for 2.5 miles, and we were setting out to ride a bicycle 112 miles when we got through the swim, and we were going to run a 26-mile marathon when we got through with that. Just kind of have a nice workout. And I got down the road a piece. I got 50-some miles out, and I was riding into a headwind of 60-some miles an hour. And I raised up on my bike, and I was the only fool riding. Some guy had just told me, AA don't take instructions too well. Some guy just said, you better get off your bike and push it, because everybody else was doing that, and I'm saying, no, not me, And the next thing I know, I'm on my rear end, and I'm paralyzed, and I've got problems, and I don't know what they are even, But that's not the story, for God's sakes. The story is that I don't even belong there. How could I be there, But for the grace of God, how could I be there, I don't, I don't know about you, and I don't know too much about AA, and I don't know too much about freedom. But what I've learned, about it, and about AA, and about freedom, is something that I couldn't believe. I could not believe before. Now, to you 14 people that said your name tonight early, you're going to wonder what the hell I'm talking about here going into something like this, and doing this song and dance I'm doing. Well, I'm trying to share with you my innermost feelings, hopes, strengths, if I have any, powers, if I have any, happinesses, if I have any, laughs, if I have them, That's what I'm trying to share. That's what I came out here for tonight. I came here, let me tell you, I'm 5 Willie Nelson tapes away from here. That's a long way. That's right. It takes 5 Willie Nelson tapes from my house to here, and I had to sit in the parking lot to hear the last song. So, you know, what can I tell you? I'd go to any lengths. Yeah. So if you were watching that thing and they told you that I had cancer 2 years ago, and that I couldn't swim 2 years ago, and that a lot of things they told you about me, some were true, you know. I could swim a little bit before I got the cancer, but the problem was, once they started treating me for that dumb cancer, I couldn't swim across the pool. I couldn't, you know, I was out of breath. As a matter of fact, I was so sure that that radiation, I had to take 38 radiation treatments, and I was so sure that they were going to wipe me out that one day I said to this young fellow who's in AA that I don't sponsor him, but I sponsor his sponsor, and I think one of his obligations was to come drive me to the hospital to get my radiation treatment in the mornings, you know. I had them in the mornings at 9 o'clock, and I was supposed to have 5 a week like that. And so anyway, Dougie came by that day and picked me up, and I'm talking too close to the microphone, I'm sorry. But anyway, he came and picked me up and took me to get my radiation thing, and I came back scattered like I usually did. And I told him this day, I said, I had already asked the cancer doctor, I said, is it okay if I go for a swim? I said, I really feel like I need to get in the swimming pool. And he said, it's okay if you can. And so I told Doug to drop me off at the swimming pool that day. And I did jump in the water, and I went down that morning in the deep end of the pool. And as I was coming up, I started feeling a change come over me. A change from down to up. I hope you understand. They say in the Bible, if you listen, they say it can happen like that. You know? And that morning it happened like that for me. And I've had it happen like that before, but this one was very special. That's why I'm sharing it with you. And I came up and I felt like maybe I could swim a little. I swam about a quarter of a lap, you know. And that's all I could handle that day. And the next day I went back after my radiation treatment. I did a little more, you know. And pretty soon I was swimming 40 laps, you know. Before my radiation treatment was over, I was swimming 40 laps. So I can swim. But the point is that God was doing some things for me that I can't do for myself. And if you knew, guys, the 14 of you who were had enough power to get up tonight and give us your name, if you've read in the book, you read about promises. And it talks about things like, before I'm half through, I'm going to find God doing for me things I can't do for myself. And you know that's the truth. And I continue to find that to be true. One day, on one day, on one day, you know. And I see it happening for new people, and I see it happening for old-timers, and I see it happening for intermediates and whoever they are, you know. And God is doing for them things they can't do for themselves, you know. I see guys with open heart surgery showing up at meetings, you know, like 10 days after. Things like that just blows me away. I got up this morning after I said my little prayer, and I had a couple of cups of coffee with my wife, and I ran down to today is in my town, they have a kind of a La Bayona Day, as they call it. And it's a celebration, you know, and they have a little 10K race there, and I ran down this morning after I got up and had my coffee with my wife and ran in the race. And I ran in the race with an alcoholic guy that I know who's had open heart surgery, you know, and he runs and races 10Ks and half marathons, and he does all kind of things, you know. And God is doing for him something he can't possibly do, and he's doing it, you know. So that's part of the message that I'm bringing you here tonight, and I'm bringing it to you in a kind of a haphazard way, but that's the way it is with me sometimes. But anyway, back to this Kona thing, because I've got another little story to tell you about. Because of this cancer thing, I had decided that I wanted to do that Ironman in the worst way, because I had done a lot of this other stuff and run marathons and things, and I wanted to try that. I wanted to give it one try. I wanted to see if somebody, some wino like me, could even get close, you know. And I know that day that that had I not, God had a different plan, because I know if I hadn't been blown off that bicycle, that I would have completed the thing, you know. I got a letter from the lady who directs that thing, you know, and she's kind of halfway asked me to come back this year. And the guy who, if you remember, the guy, Al Michaels, the sports announcer, told me that he'd meet me at the plane next year. And so there's a lot of encouragement for me to go back and give that thing another shot. My wife and I kind of halfway decided that maybe I shouldn't do it until next year. And then my doctor said the same thing, because a few weeks ago that cancer showed up in a different place, and he put me through 3 more radiation treatments. And I light up in the dark, so I've had about all the radiation a guy can take, you know. So what I do now is I'm taking some little bomber chemo pills that just kind of really do a kind of a chatter job on me. But the fact is that I'm able to do the things that I like to do. I was fortunate enough to get up this morning and last through 6 miles of running. So, and Thursday I swam 2 miles in the ocean and bicycled 25 miles, and I'm taking chemo, you know. So by the grace of God and with the power that's, you see, if you remember and you listen closely, I said, when I get on the side of the bed, I ask for 2 things. As knowledge of His will for me is the first thing I ask for, and then I ask for power for this day, one day, all I want. That's all I want. Just give me enough power to get through the day, you know. And you know, God has continued to do that. He has not failed me yet, you know. Some days I think He short-sheeted me, and maybe about 5 o'clock when I really get to feeling tired. But I find out that I had just enough power to get on down the road for the rest of the day. So He will give you what you ask for, you know. He will give you what you ask for. And this all came about, people, because I went to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1962, a hopeless and helpless person who was willing to surrender his will and his life over to the care of this thing here. I didn't know God then, and I still don't know Him now. I just know that the power here that came to me in the beginning through the people of Alcoholics Anonymous has continued to come to me through the people of Alcoholics Anonymous and every other people all the other people that I meet. I now don't limit the power that I receive from people to just AA. My first sponsor was not Joe, the little guy that I described to you earlier. My first sponsor was a guy by the name of Jack. And Jack told me to use the group. So if you're new here, if you're one of the 14 people who raised your hand or got up tonight and said your name, and you don't have a higher power, let me tell you what my sponsor told me. Take the group and use them as a power greater than yourself, because they are. Collectively are the power, you know. And until you find that innermost thing for yourself, then use them, because there is enough power here to last you a lifetime, you know. So find your higher power. Now, another thing that I was told in the early days, and I hope that you 14 people will get into this, find a sponsor. Now, I know you're going to go through AA and you're going to hear guys get up at this podium and say, I've been in AA 49 years and I've never had a sponsor. This alcoholic says it is so much easier to have somebody that will give you some simple directions when the shit hits the fan, if you'll pardon the expression. Right? find somebody that you can communicate with. Because what I find, if you don't have a sponsor, you'll work yourself into total isolation. I've seen a lot of people die of isolation in Alcoholics Anonymous. I can't talk to them. They won't understand. That's the cry of the guy that's dying or going down for the third time. But they won't understand. Do you have a sponsor? No, I never got a sponsor. And I can't talk to him. I can't share that with them. And I am so lucky because this guy Jack was my first sponsor who took me through these 12 steps and said, your life depends on you taking them. And take them. Get into these steps and do them. And he gave me about 3 days to write my 4th step. I mean, a lot of guys, discuss it for more than 3 years, But he didn't give me 3 days to write it, And then he said, you'll be at my house. So you would kind of get the idea that he was a little bit dogmatic about this thing, and he was. He was an ex-Marine, and he had some carryover Marine colonel tendencies, And he said, you'll be at my house at 7 o'clock on Tuesday night with your 4th step in hand, and we're going to take it. And you know what? Tuesday night, as screwed up as it was, I showed up at his house with an inventory. And I was so afraid when I got there, I didn't want to share that because I knew that I was going to shock him down to his boots. I knew he'd never heard anything like that before. He promptly went to sleep. Had his feet up on the bed and just went to sleep. And I thought, oh, brother. So if you're new and you're thinking about taking the steps, don't think about it anymore. Start taking them. You see, you cannot think your way into right living. Can't be done. For an alcoholic, that's the last thing I can do. I read every good thou shalt not book in the world, And how-tos, I read enough how to win friends and influence people and love thy neighbor and all that stuff. And you know what? I still wound up in Lincoln Heights jail, screwed up, and lost forever. Lost forever. And I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I found out that it's all right. It's okay. So find a sponsor, get into the steps, write that inventory, and for God's sakes, go share it right now. Because I had the opportunity to ask him later. I said, how come you had me take that 5th step so fast? And he said, because you were so guilty. I haven't seen anybody come to Alcoholics Anonymous that didn't come with a case of guilt. I mean, a traveling trunk of guilt. And there's no better way to dump the guilt than to give it to someone who can handle it. Because you know what he told me? He says, I'll take it and put it in its proper place. I'll flush it in the toilet. That's right. So he put it in the right place. Then we proceed on with the steps and we take them. And we get into making amends. Now, one of the great things that happened to me in sobriety has been some of the amends steps that I've made. And another thing that is outstanding about this program is I don't have to be perfect anymore. No more. 10th step allows me to just make one mistake after another. It does. And I can just say, hey, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. And I won't do it again. I'll try not to do it again. So that bails me out there. And then these are the maintenance steps, 10, 11, and 12, where we get to a point where we carry the message to another alcoholic who still suffers. And we used that message of Alcoholics Anonymous. Don't drink, and keep coming back with me to meetings. It's important that I show up at meetings. And if it's important for me to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, as it says in step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I carry this message to other alcoholics and other people. That's one of the things that's important too, is we carry the message to other people. You don't have to be an alcoholic to carry this message to them, because there are a lot of people out there without a program. You run into them constantly. People with deep troubles, and you run into them day after day, and they need help too. And I try to be unselfish, as it says in the book. I try to share that experience and strength and hope with them too, if I can. So anyway, I drank for 22 years, and I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and the night I came to AA, I'd like to tell you about the last drunk. The last drunk I was on with a number of days and weeks went by, and I didn't even know what day it was, as a matter of fact. And my wife had come across a man who had an old AA directory, and this guy, I'm sure he's still alive, was when I got to AA, he was 19 years sober, and he would now be 41 years sober. And I know that he was sober up until like 2 or 3 years ago, and I have never seen a guy look so fantastic as this guy looked. But anyway, my wife had gone to his wife and told her that she had a cousin who was in deep trouble. She didn't know I married my cousin then. I didn't. She did have a cousin in Alaska. That's what she told this lady. She said, my cousin in Alaska is dying drunk, and he was. But the cousin she was referring to was dying in Culver City, and that was me. She got this AA directory, which was very old, and my last day of drinking, you know what she did? I accused her of this, and she said she didn't do it. But that AA directory kept showing up in strange places, and I swore I wasn't moving it, and she said she never moved it once from the moment she brought it into the house. And I wound up with the thing under the mattress in the bedroom. And I pulled it out once, and I remember reading on the back side of that thing, the 12 steps. And I had this thing in my head about those 12 steps. And I still see that old dog-eared directory, and I still see those 12 steps. And I say to myself, as I read them there, as I'm dying, that if I were alcoholic, it really worked for me. I know that anybody that's alcoholic could use those things. November 6, 1962, I got up in the morning early, and I was going looking for a drink in the kitchen where I had it stashed. And I poured a glass of wine, a water glass. I sat it there, and for a minute there was a little mirror up between the two windows, and for a minute I saw myself that morning. I was 37 years old, and I was bloated. I weighed over 200 pounds. My face was purple from here to here, across the bridge of my nose. I couldn't walk across the street. I was terrorized to go out of the house. If the telephone rang, I jumped 10 feet. And if you walk up behind me, I might hit you. Just terrorized. And I'm a guy who came here saying I wasn't afraid of anything. Nothing was I fearful of. And that was November 6th. I was very drunk before the day was over. And I got in that old whiskey dinged car of mine. It was beautiful. You'd love it. It had wrinkles all the way around it. Oh, man, you'd love that car. Yeah. It had really been around the horn a couple of times, you know. Because you understand, when I'm drunk, I'm the best driver in the world. And if you believe that, I used to say that, you know, people would try to take my keys, and I'd say, but wait a minute, I'm one of the best drivers in the world. And you could look at my car and tell that I was lying. So, gosh, I got in that car that night, and a funny thing happened. November the 6th, I had that AA directory in my back pocket that man had given my wife for her cousin. Her cousin never got it. I eventually was fortunate enough to carry the message to the cousin in Alaska that I was supposed to get his AA directory for him. And he's sober. He lives down in Vista or someplace like Oceanside. So it's funny how the message gets to people, you know, how people's, when it's your time and, you know, somebody brings a message to you. And it was my time, like November the 6th, 1962. It was time for me to hear the message, because that night, in a blackout, I find Alcoholics Anonymous in that AA directory. And I stood outside this meeting place until the lights went out, because I was too ashamed to go in. And they turned the lights out in this place, and they still do it. I go there often, and I love that place. Boy, the place I got sober in was the best place in the world. And it's you won't believe it, it's called Serenity Manor. Oh, God. Serenity Manor. It's on 26th Street in Santa Monica. And we've been to a lot of meetings there, haven't we? So I was hiding out there when the lights went out and when the meeting started, and I slipped in the back door and I sat down. And something happened that night. There was a big fellow sitting there, and he had a seat by him, and he motioned for me to sit there, and I sat down, and he reached over and he touched me, and I mean, he really touched me. Because what he did was he reached over and slapped me on the leg, and he told me that everything was going to be all right. And oh my, how I needed to hear that, because my world was crumbling fast. My wife had already served me papers for divorce. The FBI wanted to see me, and the police were looking for me. And Jesus, I mean, there were some people whose automobile I had backed into and crashed, and they were looking for me. And I was due in court for a drunken driving that I had almost killed a lady a few months before I got here. I hit her head on in a drunken blackout, and I almost killed her. So I had some heavy-duty problems hanging on my head. None of them, I thought, related to what you guys were talking about. But when this guy here that night reached over and touched my leg and said to me, everything's going to be all right, I crumbled. And I believe that the act of surrendering was done for me literally by the power that's here. Because he said everything's going to be all right, and I started crying like a baby. And I had never done that before. It wasn't my thing to cry. And AA started that night. I got that grain of mustard seed faith here that night. And I began to, I met some guys outside that place that night, and they talked to me until 2 o'clock to keep me from going to get drunk. Well, and at 2 o'clock they deserted me, and they screamed back at me through the night. They said, you can come back here tomorrow, and they were gone, and there I stood under that street light. I had been wanting to tell them all night there since the meeting was over that all I really wanted was another drink. And they knew it, so they kept talking that night until 2 o'clock. And I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous right there at Serenity Manor. And I haven't lost that thing, and I hope that I never lose the feeling that I have for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've found it in every room I've ever found anywhere in the country. And I've been to AA meetings everywhere, I guess, Everywhere I've been, I found a little shack out there in Kona with a metal roof and an open sides. I mean, it didn't even have walls in it. And man, we had meetings there every night. And I got to know AA people there and people traveling through from Australia and every place that stopped in there. I was out there for 30 days training before that big race that I told you about earlier. And I met some fantastic people. And I was given fantastic, encouragement to do this crazy thing that I wanted to do. And I still have people that do the same thing that have given me encouragement to go back and do the thing that I want to do. So, to tell you that I've gained freedom here, man, as I said, I don't know what the word means too much, but I know that if what I get to do is a result of being sober and not drinking one day at a time, then freedom must be fantastic. My wife and I have had and are continuing to have a love affair that I never knew about until I got sober. And that's terrific, We still hold hands and we still care. And we have friends, God, we have friends. People, when I was in the hospital, I heard from people all over, And the night they showed that thing on ABC, Christ, I got calls from everywhere. And I had a lady call me from another town. And she said, you never mentioned AA. But I know you're an AA. And that was funny because I did never mention AA. Carefully, I tried not to because I love this thing so much. Oh, God. I have, my son was 14 years old when I came, and a lot of you people don't know me, and I'm trying to hit the highlights of some of the things, and I'm sorry because my friends here have heard me so much. But my son was 14 when I came, and he's a grown man, of course, now, and he's in his 30s, and God, we're proud of that young man because he has always just been terrific, He married a girl that he met here in Palm Springs about 100 years ago at one of the first roundups that was had here. He met this young lady. Just that day, he had come in from the Air Force, and he had said to his mother and I, he said, I'm going to live at home until I'm 40, and we both fainted, And what can I tell you? We didn't want him to come back home at all. Hell, go have a good time in the Air Force. Go out on the freeway and play, but don't come home. No, I was serious. This boy was fantastic, And the very day that he's saying he's going to stay at home until he's 40, he meets this young lady, and God, she was a beauty, And wouldn't you know, her mother and father, Barbara, a lot of you know Barbara Lawrence. Barbara Lawrence is a month older in AA than I am. And we didn't even know Barbara Lawrence had a daughter. In fact, we didn't know she had any kids. It turned out she's got two fantastic boys and this gal who is she was the most beautiful thing, and I loved her immediately. She was just fantastic. She looked as if she belonged in our family, man, and we were so happy to have her. And now we got another one. We have an 11-year-old granddaughter, you know, and she's like a mother. She's like everybody else. And, you know, let me tell you about this 11-year-old kid. She is Grandpa's favorite of all favorites, you know. I mean, man, I got to tell you, I love that child. But more than that, you know, she has never heard a harsh word at my house. She's never seen me drunk. She, by the grace of God, she may never see me drunk. I'm hoping that that's true. And one day at a time it is. And she's never heard us raise her voice. AA has been a direction for me. A guy who had no sense of direction. I didn't tell you what I did before I came to AA. I was a gambler. For 20 years, I made book in Los Angeles, and that's against the law, as you might know. You know. And I used to keep a lot of that stuff in my head, and it drove me nuts. It drove me crazy. And I had to live looking over my shoulder most of the time. And I don't have to live that way anymore. I don't have to do any of those things, you know. I found a home, and this is really home, you know. I had to tell you that I've run out of time because my old sponsor, Joe, used to say, there are no souls saved after 10 o'clock. And he used to, there are some notorious speakers in AA about that time. He was saying that. And every time one of them would run over, he'd get up and kick a chair over. I swear to God, he'd do that. Until his death, he hardly had enough energy to do it, but he'd drag his foot and kick a chair over when Clancy or some guy like that would go about 20 minutes on a tear, you know. Oh, I've had some fantastic times in AA. You new guys that stood up here tonight, you are in for an experience because you can look up and down the alleys of the world and you'll never find anything like Alcoholics Anonymous. And I hope you stay here long enough until you really find out what's happening, because it is happening here, life itself, you know, without chemicals, without anything. Life is going on. God bless you.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.